Hello everybody. A warm welcome from my side to the deep dive session number 5. It's the international focus of Taiwan. I was last year also here presenting some people not coming from the eastern part. They were coming from the northern part, from Finland. It was really a great experience to have the Finnish people here, and we could really learn a lot of them. Even, to be honest, I was a little bit frustrated seeing what in Finland is possible with medical data. And I hope that one time also here in Switzerland, we will have these possibilities, especially in regards to secondary use of clinical data for research purposes. Well, anyhow, it's a great honor to have here 4 really well-known people from the biomedical and health IT segment of Taiwan here. 2 persons in place and 2 persons virtually, as you see, Mr. Zhou Ye, Dr. Zhou Ye, and also Dr. Yi Wei Chang. We don't see him right now, but I think he will also turn on his camera in the next seconds. First, we begin, as mentioned in the program, with Dr. Yi Wei Chang. Hello, now we see you. Great to have you here. He's a deputy superintendent of the Taipei Veteran General Hospital. This is one of the biggest and largest hospitals in Taiwan. And he also initiated the nationwide Smart Hospital campaign for facilitating cooperation between hospitals and technology companies. So he is deeply involved in the cooperation with medtech and health IT companies. This he started in 2014. He also played a major role in the COVID crisis. There he was adopting the information technologies in medical services, telemedicine, and testing and vaccination. So I'm sure we will also hear something about the response of Taiwanese healthcare system to the COVID crisis. And he also awarded the Distinguished Alumnus Award from the Johns Hopkins University Hospital, where he did his PhD. And the title of his speech right now will be Application of Information and Communication Technology in Healthcare System of Taiwan. And hopefully we can learn a lot from you. So the floor is yours, Dr. Yi. We are very pleased to hear and see what you want to present.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your introduction. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, greatly.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Wei Chang Li from Taipei, Taiwan. It's my privilege to introduce how the healthcare organizations in Taiwan adopt information and communication technologies to improve the quality and the efficiency of medical care. Next, please. Yeah, Taiwan is well known for its strong information technologies and manufacturers. The revenue of Taiwan's integrated circuit or IC industry was $145 billion in year 2021, about 26% of the world market share. Beyond the personal computers, smartphones, and the semiconductors, the revenue from the biotech and digital health products has been rapidly growing for the past 10 years. Nearly $40 billion market are from the 127 biotech companies in Taiwan, and many products are exported to the other countries, maybe including Swiss. Next. Based on Taiwan's strong healthcare system and the information manufacture, the government has initiated 6 core strategic industries since year 2020. Both precision health and the information and digital industries are on the priority list. It's a win-win solution if these 2 competitive industries can link and work together. Next slide, please. This is our core strategies. Next slide. I would like to introduce our healthcare system. The aims of digital transformation of Taiwan's healthcare system are 4. First is to improve the quality and promote health. Second is to feed people's high-volume services. In Taiwan, every people have about 15 visits a year. It's quite a large volume. And to improve the administrative efficiency. And finally, to facilitate the biomedical industries. Next slide, please. There are about 480 hospitals and more than 18,000 primary care clinics to serve 23 million people in this island country. The majority of these hospitals are privately owned, and more than 90% hospitals are contracted with the government-run single-payer health insurance system we call the National Health Insurance System. The average number of visits was about 15 per year. As a result, hospitals need to manage the high-volume inpatient and outpatient services in an efficient way. Although the healthcare system of Taiwan, as you can see on the right side, has been highly regarded by many international rankings, many hospitals dedicated to adopt digital transformation for both quality and efficiency purposes. Next slide, please. Every national health insurance beneficiary has held a smart insurance chip card for about 20 years. This is not just a photo ID card, but also a card with personal information saved on this chip. When a Taiwanese seeks medical help, he or she will show this smart IC card to doctors. There are personal information and recent medical and medication record saved on the chip card. Doctors can access patients' information after electronic signature by their doctor card on the right side. Beyond personal information, some personal health information is also saved on the chip, such as the willingness of organ donation in case of accidents. Because this system has been used for about 20 years, so that the government is moving forward to the virtual card with a random QR code on the personal smartphones. Next slide, please. However, the NHI smart card is still not large enough for saving the growing volume of personal health information. So the National Health Insurance Administration developed a cloud system which can save personal medical information for 23 million NHI beneficiaries. By the regulation, hospitals and primary care clinics need to upload the patient medical information to this platform, such as a prescription, test result, immunization record, dental services, and Chinese medication services. Next slide. And healthcare organizations' electronic medical record can link to the MediCloud through an encrypted and secure network, so that the doctors can check if there has been any duplication in medication, lab test, or imaging study over the past 6 months at the other hospitals. Next. And the more promising projects are on the agenda. For example, all imaging results shall be uploaded to the MediCloud within 24 hours after the study. Under patient's authorization, this information can be shared and discussed among different hospitals and doctors. This is an important step for the telemedicine. Moreover, the National Health Insurance has also invited several top AI teams to establish an AI review system. Many expensive imaging studies, such as the MR and the CT scans, will be automatically reviewed in the background by the AI system to avoid overuse or misuse. During the COVID-19 pandemic, patients' chest films are reviewed by AI assist system for the rapid diagnosis of pulmonary infections. Next slide. Systemic collection of personal data from this electronic medical record, genetic test, and other personal data have been used for research purposes. Many public-private partnership models have been established for exploring this valuable and integrated database, including the biobanks, genomic database, and the imaging databases. Next slide, please. This slide shows how the key initiative of hospitals' digital healthcare, and we like to call them ABCDFG. That is artificial intelligence from the left to right, blockchain, the cloud system, the data management, and edge computing, fifth generation transmission, and the next generation gene sequencing. Next slide. I am working for the Taipei Venture General Hospital for nearly 30 years. This is a leading medical center in Taiwan with about 3,300 licensed beds and 6,800 employees. Every year, it serves nearly 120,000 inpatient and 2.5 million outpatient. To be a smart hospital, the Taipei Venture General Hospital has had significant investment in digital transformation over the past 10 years, especially in the following field. For example, the patient risk prediction and the early warning system, and for telemedicine. And also we integrated many Internet of Things, the wearable devices and their data interpretation to our traditional medical record. And we also developed the AR, VR, and the XR in our education, simulation training, and decision making. Next slide, please. We also provide patient user-friendly applications for appointment scheduling and billing. And on the other side, patient can get health information specifically for their diseases, not many other the junk information. They can also check their vaccination record during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide. The AI techniques have also been widely adopted to assist our clinical doctors in the diagnosis of such as arrhythmia, brain tumor, fracture, and pulmonary lesions. And with AI also being used for clinical data analysis to predict patient risk of disease and advise our clinical team as early as possible. Next slide. Several international PC manufacturers are actually dedicated to collaboration with the clinical expert in this field. For example, the diabetes is very popular chronic disease worldwide. We developed an AI-based diagnostic algorithm to provide a preliminary diagnosis for the diabetic retinopathy. The accuracy rate is around 93%. Next slide, please. We also use the natural language understanding technique to develop an AI-assisted medical diagnosis code by analyzing medical record and operation note. Next slide. An early study report showed that after using this AI-assisting system, hospital benefit from the DRG increased about 5 to 10% with the help of AI system. Next slide. Beyond the AI system, many Internet of Things or IoT have been widely adopted in hospitals in Taiwan, and their data are integrated to individuals' health record. Next slide. These advanced Internet of Things have also been used at the nursing homes and the home care settings in Taiwan. Some vendors can list the remote camera, oscilloscope, and the stethoscope to those who need at home. The data and the imaging from this IoT can be utilized and interpreted by doctors from the telemedicine system. Next slide. Here are some examples of the utilizations of telemedicine and IoT at the Veterans Nursing Home. There are 12 veteran nursing homes around the country. And so odontology, dermatology, and psychiatry and psychology doctors can handle them well. And patients can also very satisfied with them, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. These old people, they are very hard to go to hospital for service, but they can get service here from telemedicine. Next slide. Another big PC manufacturer designs a single lead and 7-lead electrocardiogram devices for continuous surveillance of heart rhythm for 7 days. Patients, no matter living at hospitals, nursing homes, or the homes, can upload their vital signs to a central monitor station. And this is quite useful, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide. The Taipei Veteran General Hospital collaborated with manufacturers to establish a remote surveillance system for the quarantined patient care at the isolation ward. The nursing station can monitor more than 200 patients at the same time with the help of information technologies. Next slide. And we are also facing some challenges. We also use it for the result remote consultation. Next slide. We are facing some challenges. Although many hospitals have their own plans for the digital transformation, actually there are challenges we are needed to face and resolve. It is quite difficult to exchange patients' data between hospitals and to develop one system fitting all the majority of hospitals. It is mainly due to the hospital IT system is tailored for each hospital with different UI layout, different workflow, and very different database models among the hospitals. Next slide. Hospitals are working with the big local and the international IT manufacturers to design a more flexible operation system for the majority of hospitals that can share the same applications, databases, and application software at this common platform. And hopefully I can share with you next time during our Swiss Tech 2023. Next slide. And this is my presentation. Thank you for your listening and welcome for your comment. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Yi. That was a very broad presentation about your current system, not only in your hospital, also in your country. And especially your cross-hospital approach would be for interest for us here as well in Switzerland, as we are going to establish our national electronic health record system. As far as understood, Audrey Tang, in the morning, you already have one for the patients or for the citizens, right? So you have this national infrastructure, but as I see, not for interconnecting the hospitals so that the hospital can really share the clinical data and not only I would say, minimum data set for the citizens. Well, you talked a lot about AI, artificial intelligence. When I see all that, what you do with artificial intelligence, I have the question, do you need people anymore? Do you think in the future, maybe not in the near future, but maybe in the far future, a lot of things would be done by machines and not anymore by people, so you need less people doing healthcare? Is this one of your aims?
Actually, it's a dilemma. We have discussed this question many times in Taiwan. I think this actually is still in the beginning stage of the AI. And AI cannot replace our clinical professionals. I think in the short run, in the long run, I cannot predict because it changes very rapidly. Maybe one day AI will maybe will replace 90% or more percentage of the doctor's workload. But maybe good for doctors because we can save more time to take care of our patient or to continue our expertise, and we can help more. I mean, this is a competition, but AI plays an assistant role, not a replacement role. That's my thought.
Okay, thank you. I totally share your thoughts. Well, I was working as a radiologist, and about 7-8 years ago at a big congress of radiologists in Germany, one of the chief radiologists that time said, I won't recommend my son who is studying medicine to do radiology because of all these machines doing my job in the near future, but still they are needed. So I totally agree with you. Coming to AI and the software tools which are already using and which we all want to use in the near future. As you may know, here in Europe, we have a new medical device regulation, which has made quite a big hurdle to jump over for the medical device companies here. How is it done in Taiwan? I guess you have also medical device regulation. All your AI applications, what you are using right now, are they certified as medical devices right now?
Thank you for this question. And actually, the rapidly growing number of the AI-assisted medical devices has attracted public attention. And for the quality and safety assurance, actually, the government has also enrolled this AI software and AI-related devices to management. The Taiwan FDA actually enacted the regulation for governing the medical devices in year 2020. And both the hardware and the software of AI-assisted devices are all under the regulation. Our standard of the regulation are quite similar to that of the United States and the European Unions. So it's very tight. Many scientists and clinical doctors always complain that why we restrict the development of our AI using such a tight standard. But I think there are many debates. I think from the beginning, we need to regulate it more strictly than the other devices. Maybe in the near future, we can gradually release the regulation. But I review the regulation of United States and the EU. I think for democracy countries, we need to do that. And we want to help to promote, to develop the AI in a right track.
Well, I see the biggest problem with this device regulation that it's very expensive. That's one of the key problems we have, that the smaller startups with really bright and brilliant ideas, they can't afford to go under this whole certification process because it's too expensive. Well, maybe I can ask this question to your the next speaker. Coming to investments, you mentioned that you invested quite a lot in your hospital for all the digital transformation stuff. Was it paid by your hospital on your own, or did you get some additive financing from the governmental side?
No, government will not support us to develop this. I think we didn't get extra money from the insurance company. We got the reimbursement from our efficiency.
Okay, good point. Just last year in Germany, they started with these so-called apps on a recipe. So you can get an app financed by the insurance company if the doctor says this app, which must be certified, can be used and shall be used for different care situations. Okay. Also, one point, because this is also a topic from my side, and the term we use right now is called hospital at home. You showed us right now the nursing homes where you use telemonitoring, telecare, telediagnosis. Have you ever thought about bringing that totally into the patient's home, not only into the nursing home, so that you deliver care totally remotely? Is this one of your topics as well?
I think the idea of hospitals at home is technology. From technology side, it's not a problem because we have proved that we can do a very good job. However, there are many problems we need to face in Taiwan. First is the regulation. It's still based on our regulation, the telemedicine can be used only for a small number of the patient, such as those who live in the offshore island or in the mountain areas. And some for they live in a nursing home and they cannot go to hospital. Second is about payment. So far, the National Health Insurance didn't pay the telemedicine services. And third is about the competition between the hospital and the primary care clinics. Everyone knows that telemedicine is a very good tool for the market penetration. So some primary care doctors, they worry about where hospitals use this good tool to penetrate their market. So there's a lot of debate. And the fourth is that actually the patient willingness is very important. I think for the majority of patients, they still want to get the medical care with a warm service by doctors and nurses. And also the other side, doctors' willingness is also another problem. You know, in Taiwan, like many other countries, a doctor need to face the liability risk. And if they cannot get adequate information from the telemedicine, I think many of them don't want to take the risk of the so-called hospital at homes. And finally, I think very important, in Taiwan, it's very convenient for the on-site services. And so, the National Health Insurance paid by the fee-for-services basis. So telemedicine is still on a beginning stage. In the near future, I don't think it can replace our on-site services. Thank you.
Okay, but you see a future of that?
Yeah, I think in the future it's possible, but it takes time.
Yeah, we're on the same stage regarding this topic. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yi, and applause from here again for your nice talk. And maybe next year we can hear something about your a cross-hospital approach would be really for interest from my side. Good. Coming to the next speaker. So it's a pleasure to introduce Dr. Ye. Dr. Zhou Ye made his PhD at the University of Southern California in pathology. And pathology is also now his passion, I would say. He discovered his passion also for computer programming and image analysis during his PhD. And he inspired the power of computer algorithm for image analysis, as was already mentioned by Dr. Yi, which was done on all radiology images in Taiwan. I would say, wow, on all images made in Taiwan. And he founded the company called Ada AI to deliver better healthcare in the context of pathology, digital pathology. So his company now is a leading digital pathology AI company in Taiwan, which collaborates with top medical centers, I think also with the Veterans Children's General Hospital, and also he wants to develop and improve these AI algorithms for faster and more accurate diagnosis. So besides running his company, he's also a lecturer and giving lectures on deep learning and medical image analysis at the National Taiwan University. The title of his speech will be Application of Deep Learning in Pathology. Mr. Dr. Yi, we are pleased to hear.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kim, for your kind introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Joe, founder and CEO of Ether AI. Just let's wait for the presentation slide to come up. Okay, all right. Could you please also share the screen? Oh, okay, now I can see it. Thank you. So Ether AI is a pathology AI startup company founded in 2015 and based in Taiwan. And today it's my great honor and pleasure to be sharing with you some of the experiences we have been making in the artificial intelligence-driven digital transformation of pathology in Taiwan. And just a quick correction to make, I eventually quit my PhD, so I'm not a PhD. I do have my MD degree, but I don't save people anymore. I am now in the dark side in the industry. Next slide, please. So some of you might actually be surprised that digital transformation for healthcare is actually still a work in process. So for example, despite its importance in making the final diagnosis, the core process of pathology, namely the morphological assessment of histological specimen, has been practiced in a very traditional and in fact manual way. For hospitals, the digital transformation for pathology has been quite slow, and they are hesitant because the return on investment is actually unclear. Equipment for digital pathology is actually quite expensive. In addition to the digital whole slide scanner, you have to purchase computer server and storage system. And for all those investment, it is actually not quite clear what a digital system can bring to the pathology daily workflow. But luckily, the advent of AI has been changing all these, and it has become a major driving force for adoption of digital workflow because potentially it can help improve the efficacy and efficiency of the pathology reading process. So it is actually our core theory that only through AI we can realize the benefit of digital pathology workflow system. Next slide, please. So now, let me give you some brief introduction to the history of pathology. The foundation of modern pathology was established by Dr. Rudolf Virchow in the latter half of the 19th century. And so pathologists' work is to look under a microscope at tissue sections and make diagnosis at cellular level. For that to happen, they actually have to cut tissue into thin slices. And because tissue is quite soft, you cannot easily cut soft things. So the paraffin wax embedded tissue sectioning has become the most important method for pathology to cut thin slices. The method was first introduced in 1869. And for natural tissue, there's no color contrast. It actually looks whitish under a microscope. For you to be able to tell the differences between cells and tissues, you need to have some color. So the most popular method, the H&E staining method, was first introduced in 1875. And of course, pathologists need a microscope to observe a tissue, and the compound optical microscope was invented in 1620s. And why do I put these numbers here? Because surprisingly, for the past 150 years, these methods have been the same. So in the past 1 century or so, pathologists have been doing their work in largely the same manner. It is actually very surprising. Next slide, please. Shall we anticipate any problems? Of course. So for example, early and small lesions or pathogens could be quite easily missed, especially when there's time pressure in pathology's daily workflow. For example, identifying pathogen for tuberculosis in a large histopathology specimen is time-consuming, cumbersome, and error-prone. Or identifying isolated tumor cells in lymph node sections is also another challenging task. Furthermore, pathologists are often required to report quantitative results, which is just humanly impossible. So for example, on the image that you see here, pathologists are asked to report the percentage of cells that are stained brown instead of purple. So what they typically do is they use their superpower, the eyeballing technique, essentially their gut feeling to do the reporting. So what you can imagine is a highly subjective report result. It could vary wildly between days. So they have to do this for KS67, ERPR, PDL1 on a daily basis. So I think deep down there in their mind, they are actually hoping that AI can come and save their day. Okay, next slide, please. And it is with these thoughts that starting from 2018, we have been working very actively with medical centers in trying to create pathology AI applications with the hope that they can eventually help pathologists do their daily work better. The first success story is AI-assisted differential counting of bone marrow smear. Bone marrow smear is the procedure patients have to undergo when they are suspected of having hematologic disease. Physicians draw bone marrow from the bones, smear them on the slide, and ask technicians to perform differential counting of 500 cells under microscope. What's the problem? This is a very cumbersome procedure. Highly trained experts are in shortage. In fact, many hospitals are actually in lack of these kind of experts. And also, manual counting method is nearly impossible to validate because there are no digital photos saved. So you can only count on medical technicians' words for the report. This is highly unscientific. And to help improve the quality of this procedure, we are envisioning a more digital feature where AI can help with the differential counting. So we collaborate with National Taiwan University Hospital and 6 other institutions in Japan and US in collecting over 1,000 bone marrow smear slides. And we began by taking digital images of these bone marrow smear slides. Now, over 70,000 image are taken using a 20 megapixel camera and 100x oil lenses. The critical bottleneck of this process is actually the annotation of cells. For AI to be taught, we need to provide them with accurately annotated images. So far, with more than 20 experts contributing their expertise, we have annotated more than 1.5 million bone marrow cells. This is the largest bone marrow cell annotated image database in the world. And using this database, we can train deep neural network to perform cell detection and classification. Next slide, please. This is an example of a bone marrow smear image. This is actually highly challenging for the traditional image processing method to differentiate because cells are crowded and the differences between cells are minute. But this is what deep neural networks can excel at. But we need to provide them with annotation. Next slide, please. This is an example of annotated image. You can see how painful it is. So we actually have to draw contour over each individual cells and label them with their current identity. And so far, more than 1.5 million cells have been performed. So this is highly challenging. So some people are wondering why we're able to persuade our experts to perform this kind of a painstaking annotation process. What we told them is that you only have to do this once. Once AI remembers it, you don't have to do it anymore again in your lifetime. Next slide, please. Using this large database, we're able to train AI to perform cell classification with an average accuracy of 94.8%. This is actually outperforming many human experts. Next slide, please. Now we have turned them into a well-developed product. So in this image, you can see a live image after being captured by the camera will be analyzed by AI, and the cell contour will be drawn and cell identity labeled. Of course, we allow human experts to go in and verify the results or refute the results provided by AI. After human experts verified, we'll then provide a summary report. This is one of its kind, and it's the first in the world. And now it's approved by Taiwanese FDA, and also it is CE marked for marketing. With this, we're hoping to improve the standard of bone marrow smear differential counting process and ultimately the quality of care in hematology. Next slide, please. Now let's move on to the second success story. This is regarding histopathology. So we started this project back in 2018. So back then, digital transformation for pathology was very slow. Our motivation was to try and create AI applications to convince doctors that, first, AI can recognize cancer And second, it can help you do your job better. And so it'll motivate you to adopt a digital pathology workflow. Our goal is very simple. We were to train deep neural networks to recognize cancer cell in nasal biopsy to improve the accuracy and efficiency of the reading process. This project was done in collaboration with Chang'e Memorial Hospital using 726 whole slide images, half of them containing nasopharyngeal carcinoma and half of them are benign. And Dr. Zhang works for Chang'e Memorial Hospital. In this project, we took a two-stage deep neural network approach. Next slide, please. The research result was published in Cancers. It is important for us to publish the results in peer-reviewed journal because we have to convince the healthcare industry that these results are scientifically sound so that they can be motivated to use them in their daily clinical workflow. If you're curious, you can scan the QR code and read the article online. Next, please. Again, one of the critical bottleneck of this project is annotation, and especially because whole slide images have such high image resolution, it is impossible to use them directly when they're undivided to train AI. We have to cut them into small patches. And with this, we then need pathologists to help us annotate images using these freehand region of interest tool so that we can then crop images from these region of interest and use these labeled images to train AI. Next, please. And that's why we call it the two-step approach. First, because the whole slide image are just too high in their image resolution, we have to divide them into small patches. And so with the annotation, we're able to label individual image patch and train a patch level model to perform three category classification between background, benign, and cancer. After a whole slide image is processed by AI model, it is then turned into a smaller image with each pixel representing the classification probability of all the three categories. So this smaller image was then used to train a slide level model to perform the final classification of whether the slide is being benign or containing MPC. On the right, you're seeing a receiver operating characteristic curve. So the essence of this curve is that when the curve is closer to the left upper corner, with the area under curve close to 1, it is a perfect algorithm. So with our AI model, we're able to reach area under ROC of 0.98, close to a perfect algorithm, but not quite there. The reason I say so is because we see six crosses here. So we see that the great majority of the pathologists that we work with actually outperform the AI model. Only one of them is falling behind AI, and that is a first-year resident. So we're seeing the value of medical education. So we're happy that doctors are actually performing better than AI. But then what's the point of creating this AI model? We are creating an AI model not to replace human doctors, but rather to help them do their job better. Next, please. This is an example where AI is truly helpful in helping pathologists identifying challenging lesions. So this is the actual case that the first-year resident missed. So this is a large piece of a nasal biopsy specimen. In the red bounding box, when zoomed in, you can see that there are 3 lesions highlighted by AI in a light white color. So when you look closely, you'll quickly figure out that these are actually cancerous lesions. With AI's help, residents can now easily localize these lesions in the rather small piece of the specimen and don't worry about missing the lesions ever again. So this is where AI can help, especially in the challenging cases. So we're envisioning a future where physicians are working together with AI. Next, please. But then again, I've mentioned several times, the critical bottleneck for the digital pathology AI development is the annotation process. For example, this particular slide took Dr. Zhang over 1 hour to annotate. This is simply unsustainable for the future of pathology AI. Next, please. So we keep asking ourselves, why are we asking pathologists to annotate? It is because we are incompetent as computer scientists, so that we're not able to use the entire undivided whole slide image to train AI, so that we have to ask pathologists to compensate for the incompetency of computer. But then we're doing AI, right? Isn't that ridiculous? So we keep asking ourselves, can we do better? Can we overcome the fundamental problems and actually use entire undivided host-like images to train AI? That'll truly open up the possibility of pathology AI development in the future, because hospitals have hundreds of thousands of host-like images, and pathologists do not have the time to annotate every single one of them. So luckily, over the past 3 years, with our effort, we're able to overcome the fundamental difficulties in training AI using very high resolution image. We're able to use images up to 5 billion pixel, essentially entire undivided host-like image, to train AI directly. Next slide, please. So this is the latest project that we began last year. So we're hoping to train AI to recognize the metastasis in lymph node, but without detailed annotation. A lot of groups have been working on this kind of project. So for example, Google has a publication previously, but what they took is the patch-based approach with detailed annotation. We know that it worked. The problem is that pathologists do not have time to perform detailed annotation anymore. So although we're hoping to achieve the same goal, we're taking a very different approach. We want to use annotation-free approach using entire undivided host-like image to train AI to recognize cancer metastasis. For this project, we used 5,907 lymph node images for training, 1,156 for testing, and the input image resolution is 5 billion pixel. This is a world record. No other group has been able to use image resolution this high to train AI directly. This is in collaboration with Chang'e Memorial Hospital with Dr. Zhejing Chen and Dr. Siqiao Huang. Next, please. The result was just accepted for publication just a few days ago, and now it's online at Nature Communications. If you're curious, you can scan the QR code and read the full text. Next, please. This is again the receiver operating characteristic curve for the AI model. So with the x-axis represented the false positive rate, the y-axis is the true positive rate, and again the area on the curve of close to 1 is a perfect algorithm. So with our AI model using high magnification 20x image as input, we're able to reach AUC of 0.99 for the image recognition task of differentiating micrometastasis versus benign lymph node. So our algorithm is close to perfect. But we're asking one more question. So we know that AI can be accurate, but what is the real clinical impact when it is deployed into clinical workflow? Next, please. With this question in mind, we then designed AI-powered workflow. Essentially, we're embedding the AI model into the clinical workflow system that Chang'e Memorial Hospital purchased from us. So what you see here is an AI-powered workflow. In this workflow, we have two AI models. The first AI model will detect the presence of lymph node and count them. The second AI model will classify individual lymph node into being either positive or negative for metastasis. So if a lymph node is circled by blue line, it's a negative node. If it's circled by yellow line, it's a positive node. On the right, you can see a summary report generated by AI, totaling the number of lymph node and the number of positive and negative lymph node. And then we move on to compare two scenarios. The first scenario is unassisted, completely manual workflow versus AI-assisted workflow. Next, please. In the bottom row, in the second panel from the right, you can see that for the diagnosis of micrometastasis, if the doctor is making diagnosis without assistance from AI, the clinical sensitivity for the micrometastasis diagnosis is only 81.94%. These are already highly trained experts in one of the leading medical centers in Taiwan. But with AI's help, the sensitivity can be improved to 95.83%. Similarly, for isolated tumor cells, which are even smaller lesions with only 0.2 millimeter in diameter and smaller, the doctor's sensitivity for diagnosis is only 67.95%. But with AI's help, the sensitivity can be improved to 96.15%. So you can see how useful AI is. Even more importantly, when it comes to review time, so on the top row, we can see that for micrometastasis, the review time is reduced by 30% when there is AI assistance. Similarly, for ITC, the review time was reduced by 25% with AI. So here, in this important clinical experiment, we're able to measure the real clinical impact that AI can bring. So while improving the sensitivity for micrometastasis diagnosis, it is also reducing reading time by close to 30%. So here we provide very strong scientific evidence that AI can help pathologists do their daily work better. And also more importantly, they need AI because without AI, the sensitivity is only 80% and even lower for smaller lesions. Next slide, please. So motivated by these success stories, the industry in Taiwan has been quite successful in motivating the hospital to adopt digital pathology workflow system. Starting in 2018, where we saw Taipei Veterans General Hospital was one of the first hospital to go digital, and Taichung Veterans General Hospital went partially digital. We are now seeing an increasing pace of digital transformation in pathology department in hospitals in Taiwan. Currently, 4 out of the 23 medical centers are now fully digital, including Chang'an Memorial Hospital System and National Taiwan University Hospital. And you can also see from this chart here that the pace has been accelerating, especially in 2022. So the pace was somewhat slower last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but it is picking up quite rapidly. So 5 currently are partially digital. 3 more will join the rank by the end of 2022. So in a short 4 years, half of the medical centers in Taiwan have begun their journey in digital transformation for pathology. We are excited by this trend. We believe it is among the fastest in the Asia. Next slide, please. So at Ether AI, we're not only envisioning, but also creating the future of AI-empowered pathology. So this is what an end-to-end AI-assisted digital pathology workflow in my mind, and we're now realizing the future. This is a workflow where when a case is first entered into the workflow, it'll be matched to applicable AI models. And then AI models will perform case triaging, where high priority cases will be read first so that time to treatment can be minimized. And then, of course, AI can help physicians to perform the first-line disease screening with the hope to improve detection rate of diseases or say improve the sensitivity and decrease false negative readings. When necessary, AI can also help pathologists perform precise single-cell level quantification that is essentially humanly impossible. With this, this not only provides better diagnosis, but also opens up opportunity for more personalized healthcare and a more research opportunity. Finally, AI can also help draft a structured report to save pathologists precious time and improve interoperability between physicians and institutions. That summarizes my talk. Next slide, please. There's my contact information. And thank you very much for listening. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Joe, for a very technical insight of AI usage in pathology. I've learned a lot, hopefully here the audience as well. Yeah, you talked about time saving. Can you tell us how much time is saved per specimen using your algorithm?
So for the case with the gastric cancer metastasis diagnosis, we're measuring roughly 30% of time saved with the help of AI.
Okay, that's quite much, I would say. So you need only 2/3 of the people then afterwards. No, kidding. Okay. You also mentioned that you are using deep learning mechanism, deep learning algorithm. Does that mean that your accuracy you have right now will go up steadily? Is this the hope, or is it a fact maybe? I am not an expert on AI.
Yes, we believe the accuracy can be improved. So that is one characteristic of deep neural network. With more data, the accuracy will keep improving. Although after it reaches a certain level, it'll become harder and harder. But I think the critical point here is not for AI to keep improving, because one of the important insight we saw from the research I just shared, without AI, the sensitivity in clinical diagnosis is only 80%. Well, we may argue that, whether it is enough to have 95% accuracy, but in the real life scenario, we're looking at 80% sensitivity. So that is already a big improvement if we're using AI now to help physicians, because we're seeing a very big gap right there.
Okay. One thing I recognized during your speech, the acronym AI, artificial intelligence, also gives the meaning right now for me, assisted information for the physicians and for the users, right? So AI could be also seen as just assisted system for the users. The last question, as you have a company established and you're founder and you have to earn money, I would guess. So how many installations do you have here in Europe?
Oh gosh, that's a $1 million question. So right now we're actually competing for an opportunity in Germany. We've actually just begun, but we're quite happy because we received this email coming from a university hospital in Germany, requesting for our proposal. So I suppose we somehow made ourselves known in Europe, just tiny bit. We're working harder on that. Hopefully, I can say the number is 1 after 2 months. We're working on it.
Great, great. So we all wish you success on your story here, and then we say goodbye to Taipei and to you for now. But of course, you can here still be in the call and the session for the next two presenters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So now it's a pleasure to introduce Dr. Grace Ye. She's here in person. That's really great. Please come on the stage. She's the founder and chairman and CEO of Onward Therapeutics. It's a company focusing on developing innovative cancer therapy. And she worked many years as also founder and also in senior positions for various biotech companies worldwide, and is right now the vice chairman of the Taiwan Biotechnology Industry Organization. It's called Taiwan Bio, and she will talk about that a little bit. And also a very mentionable, last year she was the first female being awarded by the Industrial Technology Research Institute. They're called ITRI. I think she can be very proud of that. And she did her PhD in immunology in the Medical University of South Carolina. And the title of her speech is the introduction of her company, Onward Therapeutics, and also she will explain a little bit about the Taiwan Bio and the ITRI. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for the organizers' invitation and also Mr. Kim's moderating of this session. So briefly, I think Mr. Kim already talked about my background. My talk will be next slide here. In a very short time frame, I will talk about my background, experiences, the second company that I founded, Onward Therapeutics, and also the nonprofit organization Taiwan Bio and ITRI, Industrial Technology Research Institute. So my education, I have a bachelor degree in biology, and then I did my PhD in immunology, and in fact, with a minor in pathology. Then I went to UK and France. So I spent 9 years in Europe, and I moved to Boston to join biotechs, T-cell sciences, Cytomed, Leukocyte, and Millennium Pharmaceuticals. And after that, very coincident, I was invited to go back to Taiwan. So I founded a company called Pharma Engine. And this company developed a treatment for metastatic pancreatic cancer. And this was approved by the US FDA, EMA, and many other countries. And the company began to be profitable, and we have the market cap over $1 billion US, and with only 22 employees. Then in 2019, 2.5 years ago, started another company called Onward Therapeutics here in Switzerland, in Biopol, just outside of Lausanne. And then the awards that you already hear. So this is the company that we want to identify promising projects, build partnership, and advance cancer care. So we are a cancer company. And here is the website that if you're interested, you can look at our information. And we're based headquarters in Switzerland, then office in Taiwan. And last year, we established a wholly owned subsidiary in Paris and also a lab. So here's a brief summary of Onward. Our business model is buy to build, that we identify and acquire promising projects in preclinical or early clinical stage by licensing or equity investment. So we don't do early drug discovery or research, and we take them to the next inflection points. Then we also, in less than a year, we did 3 deals. One with a company called Biomunics for bispecific antibody. And the second one is with MSL. This is for cell therapy. And the last one is with a public institute called ICM in Montpellier. All 3 are French-based company, and we have global rights. Then we have a very experienced team from preclinical, clinical, regulatory, all the way to commercialization. And as I said, we have international footprint. And of course, all that needs substantial funding. So we're fortunate in this, difficult area. I think because of the pandemics, we raised quite a large amount of funding. So then I switched to these Taiwan Bio. Taiwan Bio was founded in 1989, so it's a very old organization, and it covers more than 100 organizations. And its area is very broad. It covers biotechnology, pharmaceutical, diagnostics, medical devices and materials, agriculture, and also nutraceuticals. And the mission is to promote international cooperation. So we do have annual Bio Asia in Taiwan, and we cultivate the biomedical talent. So we have training courses offered by Biotech Industrial Academy. We also award people with innovation for Taiwan Bio Awards, and lastly, facilitate the communication between government and industry. And this maybe, if I have time, I can elaborate on how we do it. And this is the BioAsia. This will take place next month in Taiwan, both on-site and also online. You're really welcome to learn more about Taiwan biotech industry. And this is the theme of this year, is connecting the Asian value chain through innovation, market and supply, and investment. And so we have a large amount of conferences, company presentations, one-on-one partnering, and exhibition. This is my last slide for ITRI. ITRI is a not-for-profit organization established in 1973. I think the most famous company is called TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation. And this institute is a not-for-profit and focused on 3 areas: smart living, quality health, and sustainable environment. So I will show a video to tell you what ITRI does. And in fact, I was very honored to be elected the first female laureate in the 50 laureates with 49 male colleagues. Let's see the video.
The advances in technology and AI have driven medical care to leapfrog into a new generation. Smart medical care, which incorporates ICT and big data, has become a global trend. Taiwan is the perfect place for smart medical care, aiming to reduce the time to market of products. The Department of Industrial Technology, under the Ministry of Economic Affairs, has joined hands with multiple sectors in the medical community to create the Taiwan Integrated Biomedical Industrial Center, the first of its kind here. The center will provide testing, verification, and commercialization services for innovative smart medical devices, allowing manufacturers to adjust their products as fast as possible. Professional market regulatory consultation and prompt feedback from clinicians will also be provided to accelerate product development. TIBIC consists of 6 areas: the Human Factor and Usability Engineering Laboratory, the Surgical Robot Verification Laboratory, the Computed Tomography Simulation Room, the Intensive Care Unit Simulation Room, the Operating Simulation Room, and the Simulation Hospital General Ward. In the Human Factor and Usability Engineering Laboratory, clinicians will engage in the clinical use of medical devices and provide immediate feedback. The Surgical Robot Verification Laboratory will utilize real-time imaging robots to assist doctors in carrying out precision surgical procedures. The Computer Tomography Simulation Room will have computers reconstruct 3D images of the body, greatly enhancing diagnostic accuracy. Meanwhile, the Intensive Care Unit Simulation Room will provide real-time monitoring of patient physiological data and any changes detected. The information will be uploaded and reported to medical staff. The Operating Simulation Room will focus on the simulation and verification of clinical surgical instruments, which will accelerate the adjustment of medical devices. Lastly, innovative applications for smart medical devices and medical data will be the emphasis in the Simulation Hospital General Ward, thus satisfying multiple needs. In the future, the center will also provide human-machine usability testing and verification of smart medical devices. Product developers can thus receive continuous feedback needed in product development based on various clinical surgical scenarios, and can find innovative solutions and offer customized services for major international manufacturers. ITRI is also cooperating with international companies such as AstraZeneca. Its advantages in market size, distribution channels, and brand visibility, ITRI will lead domestic industries and related products to tap into the global market. Meanwhile, it is expected that international vendors will also be able to find comprehensive medical solutions in this center, exploring new opportunities in biomedical technology.
Thank you very much for your talk, Grace.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for the insights into your activities. So the very short question from my side. So what can Taiwan Bio help the companies in the communication with the government? What are you doing there?
Yes. In fact, I think that we have the so-called Act for the biotech, for the promotion of biotech and a bio-industry investment. So we started this act in 2007, and the act lasted until end of last year, and we renewed and through lots of discussions with the industry. So I was one of the chair for our section, and there were 4 sections for new drugs, for medical device, for precision health, and also there's a regenerative medicine. And so through this act, I think we offer, or the government offer, tax incentives for the biotech company. As you know, that biotech burns a lot of money, and we really need to have the government also play their part. So this is what they did. And the new act will last for another 10 years until the end of 2031. And so briefly, it's you will get the tax incentives if you invest, if the company invest in the new drugs or a new device, or we also expanded the area, including AI, including even CDMO. So not just for the company, but also for individuals, because oftentimes you receive incentive stock options, and how do you manage to really benefit from it? So there were certain tax incentives that you can receive. So all of this, I think it's helped the Taiwan bio industry to move to the next stage.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much for the insight. Okay.
Thank you.
So I welcome the sorry, you're right. I welcome the last speaker. I'm happy to introduce Dr. Cao. Linus Cao is the founder and current president of the European Taiwan Biotech Association. Maybe a little bit the Taiwan Bio on a smaller scale yet, but maybe it will grow. So he has over 15 years of R&D experience in the medical device and pharma industry, and he successfully brought several in vitro diagnostic technologies from the lab also to the market. Currently, he fosters novel digital health solutions to support patients at Novartis in Basel?
In Basel, yes.
Okay, good. We are lucky to hear something about you, about the medtech and digital health landscape in Taiwan.
Thank you, Mr. Kim, for the nice intro. And thank you, everybody, for joining. It's my pleasure to give a short intro about the association about Taiwan. And I'm sorry the title might be a bit misleading, because now with the thanks to the previous speakers, you probably get very in-depth technical topics about Taiwan in terms of medical technology, in terms of AI. So I will just talk about something more simple, like if you're interested to know a bit more about Taiwan, how can I start as the first step to do collaboration? So I think that's where the ETBA can probably help. So ETBA stands for Europe Taiwan Biotech Association. I was one of the founder, and to start this association back in 2017, because I was here working for Kaizen and for Novartis right now. And it was very difficult for me to really bump into some Taiwanese, whether in a work environment or in my private life. So I thought, why not start an association and start to know the Taiwanese people? That's how everything started. But over time, we built up like 500 members, mostly individual members across 21 countries, because when we make an event, we usually make a webinar, and that's easy for overseas people to also attend. Now we have about 60% of members in Europe, 30% in Taiwan. So we start kind of foundation. It helps us to really start to build momentum to support business collaboration between Switzerland and Taiwan. So in 2019, actually pre-COVID, we made a physical event in Basel. The event title was the Swiss Taiwan MedTech Leaders Forum. We managed to attract about 30% of our participants from Taiwan, because we made it right after Medica. Usually there's some 200 companies from Taiwan join that event. So we make it after the event so they can extend one more day and come to Switzerland to meet the companies here. So that was really a good time, and we hope to start this again as we now finally back to normal. And just before we jump to the topic, I also would like to share some fun facts between these two nations. They are pretty far away. I mean, Switzerland and Taiwan, I think it's really far in terms of distance, but if you look in detail, geographically or industry-wise, it's remarkably similar. The land size is pretty much the same. We are a small island in Taiwan. Here is also a mountainous area. And the population, of course, we are in Asia, it's more crowded. We have about 23 million people there. Taiwan, although it's an island, but it's also the elevation is pretty high. We have also a lot of mountain in the center part of Taiwan. The differences is if you go to the top of a mountain in Taiwan, you don't find ski resorts because we are in the subtropical area, so you see a lot of greens and basically a jungle. And the landscape is very much different compared to the mountains in Switzerland. And yeah, GDP, if you average by the purchase power, it's similar, but I think in terms of absolute value, Switzerland is definitely highest. And Taiwan is very highly industrialized, and a lot of GDPs are generated by industrial output. And probably the most well-known is the electronics industry in Taiwan, semiconductor, ICT. They are about 70% of laptop worldwide are produced by Taiwanese companies, and maybe over 80% of motherboards, the main board in the PC and the laptops are produced by Taiwanese companies. So those are our main export sectors. In terms of forex reserve, both countries has very strong reserve, which gives us financial stability. So, and Switzerland is pretty much in the center of Europe. I mean, you can reach out to the south, to the north, to the west very easily in 1 hour, 2 hours flight. And in Taiwan, it's similar. The location is very in the heart of East Asia. You can go to Japan and go to Singapore in the matter of 2-3 hours in flight. And a lot of international ranking also in favor for Taiwan to do business or to do innovation. The ranking is usually in the top in Asia. Our competitors are usually Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, China. But Taiwanese industry is quite well recognized. And I think we can also talk about it like cultural aspect. I think that's where I see a bigger difference. The Taiwanese people in general, Asian, I think they are more taking this trial and error approach. So when they have an idea, they just go full steam ahead without much planning to see, okay, what would be the next step, what we need to pull together with a lot of stakeholder discussion. Usually that's not the case. The tech people just went straight full steam ahead, and they are very entrepreneurial, and they can even take a lot of workload. A lot of people, they have full-time job, but on the side, they also do a lot of work in the private time, in the evening, weekend projects to pursue some innovations. So I think that's something that I see a bit more different compared to a European culture, where you would prefer to have asking all the stakeholders and get a proper plan, and then step by step going forward. But I think these two can somehow complement pretty well. Taiwanese people can learn a lot of planning, but I think European company can also learn the agility and the speed and the risk-taking kind of attitude from Taiwan, from Asia companies. So that trait has been recognized by a lot of global players like Google, Amazon, Microsoft. They put in R&D center in Taiwan to leverage the talents in Taiwan, because in terms of world talent ranking, if you look at the junior, the skill set of the people, young people across the world, Taiwanese is ranking very high in terms of mathematics, science, and technology. And you can also see that reflecting in our business output. So that's really the strength for Taiwan in terms of talent. And our association help a lot of European companies, also Taiwanese companies, try to do market entry or partner search. So I can give you one example is the company I'm working for right now, Novartis. During the pandemic, a lot of trials are being blocked. So they are thinking, how can we do kind of trial from home? That means since we all work from home, why can we treat the patient from home and monitor their progress? To do that, it's not enough to just have a telemedicine, Zoom to talk to the patient, but also you need to do a lot of measurements. And that measurement should be recognized by the health authority. So they started a search to see digital biomarkers, especially the mature ones. How can they adopt those technology, put into their trial, and allow the trial to still continue? And so our association helped them to make this survey in Taiwan and try to pitch to gather the proposals from Taiwan. And there are also 3 other countries, 2 in Asia, 1 in Middle East, that Novartis was doing the same program. But the feedback from Taiwan was the highest. The volume of submission to this program was highest in Taiwan. And also it ranges from, university research lab to very mature companies like Fortune 500 companies when they have a medtech division also try to do some innovations. So we really get a wide range of applications from Taiwan. Eventually, 2 of them move into the final stage, into the collaboration with Novartis. So that was just one example. So I think there's a good synergy between both sides, because in software, like software development, like Europe is much ahead in terms of compared to Taiwan. But in terms of electronics manufacturing design and the scaled up production, I mean, Taiwanese companies are very strong in this. Top 4 of the top 10 EMS companies are Taiwanese companies. In fact, top 3 are all Taiwanese companies. Foxconn, Petrogon, Wistron, they are all supporting from design to scale up production. So that's the kind of advantage you can leverage from the Taiwanese expertise. And also from the Dr. Lee's presentation, the hospital in Taiwan, not only they rank pretty high in the medical technologies, but they are also very open to new innovations, using the data to train and to do the AI development. I think that is really advanced in Taiwan, and people are just willing to share the data, and for research use, it's not such a hurdle like for the people there. And another good thing, like for these Swiss medtech startups, is also you can use Taiwan as a springboard to jump into Asian market, because a lot of Taiwanese companies has established sales channel manufacturing facilities in China, which is the biggest market the people would like to join. And the good thing about working with Taiwanese companies is you get better IP protection, because Taiwan is a small country. We have to work with international players, so the trust is very important for us to maintain. So the IP part is really taken seriously in Taiwanese company. And so I think as a first step, if you want to learn Taiwan, of course, there's always a big conference. This healthcare expo in Taiwan is a combination of hospitals, really medical experts with the ICT industry to see if they can create some innovations. So feel free to join. And if not, also at your doorstep, there's ETBA. You can join our event in the future, learn more about us, and then we are happy to help you in any way we can. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Linus, about the overview of your association on all the possible benefits also here companies from Europe could have if they are asking you. May I correctly understand? So it's kind of consulting and networking, what you are delivering and promoting from your association.
Exactly. Yeah.
If I'm a startup here in the biotech area and I would like to make maybe some business or get some more networks in Asia, I could contact you.
Exactly. Yeah, you can contact our association. The membership is free, so there's no barrier for individual or for company to join. And the good thing is once you are a member, you get all the notice about the future events. So feel free to join the event, sometimes online, sometimes on spot. And we can also take projects, like we are non-for-profit, but we can take projects to help you find partners depending on the scope. So that's what we did as association. Yeah.
So now you have your buddy you can contact. Thank you very much for all this insight from Taiwan. I hope you also enjoyed here the session. I did it and learned a lot, and hopefully we can see you on other cases and locations. Thank you.